Hello and welcome to the MADEcast, the official podcast of the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment, a series of lectures on video game history as part of the MADE's ongoing effort to preserve history through teaching and displaying playable exhibits of rare games and consoles.
While life in the time of COVID has forced us to close our doors, the support of people like you has allowed us to continue to bring history to you through lectures like the one you'll hear in a few minutes. I'm Red.
I'm Miles.
I'm Chin.
And I'm Anthony. Let's get into some news.
The news today. It is news time. Here we have news
God,
for
horrible.
you.
No,
and
don't
me.
do that. Stop.
I mean,
We don't
I'm
need
trying.
jingles.
It's new ideas. We gotta. It's
No jingles.
new ideas. Gotta keep it flowing, everybody. I mean, Pokemon news. I mean, what? Hey, I was getting everybody ready for the Pokemon concert.
You are not Post Malone, though.
No, I am not Post Malone. I mean, but I'm working on it.
You're gonna
A
need
few more
couple
face tattoos. And,
face tattoos.
yeah, a few more face tattoos and a little bit of auto tune and more rap skills and more drive and
A lot more rap skills. Not least of which is the long-awaited Gen 4 remakes. Very exciting.
I have
What
complex
are they
feeling.
called?
Diamond and Pearl.
No, the remake names.
Well,
Giant diamond or giant pear? Or,
yeah, big diamond. Yeah, big diamond and
I
large
mean,
pearl.
Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
Okay.
Okay.
Coming later this
Of
year.
course.
Big diamond, large pearl.
I wonder what happened to the
What
planting.
happened?
Yeah, platinum will be
Just don't tell me.
shiny platinum.
Just don't tell me it's another DLC. Tell me it's inside.
That would be cool. I have a feeling that they would probably do that.
Oh no.
I mean,
they
might.
when they did the remakes for Gen 3, they just completely skipped over Emerald, which was the best of the three.
Yeah.
And they've kind of done away with the third game that's the combination of the first two. Like, they don't do Emeralds and Platinums and, that style anymore.
I just hope
So
they don't skip it.
it'll be interesting to see.
Just don't skip it, that is.
Yeah.
I'll be crying if they do that.
I mean, because, Platinum was the best of the three. Like, the third game always is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The story's a little expanded. There's always a little more features.
I was always amazed when Emerald, like the first Emerald, like I played. I was always amazed at how that was the singularly most hyped game of my childhood. I think
Mm-hmm.
was Pokemon Emerald. I mean, just getting Rayquaza and seeing that, it's like, oh, that's such a power move to other kids. Like just showing you had Emerald at the time, at least for me. But Pokemon will always hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't really touched a game in since. No, I played a little bit of Black. I never finished it, but oh well.
That was a good generation.
Yeah.
What was that, 5?
It was enjoyable.
It was 5.
Yes, because I was like, no, I played one after that, but then it was like, no, that was just a remake. I played Heart Silver and Soul Silver and Heart Gold.
That was a good generation.
That was the best generation. I mean, that's what they should do with Pokemon. But we have other news. We'll get into plenty of news earlier, but Final Fantasy VII is the remake is now the PlayStation Plus free game of March. So everybody get ready to download that. That's going to be quite a huge one. I still need to finish hard mode.
You notice that you can upgrade your PS4 version from PS Plus to the PS5, but if you buy it, you'll be able to play it free on PS5. And of course, they push it out together with the DLC.
Ooh. What is in the new DLC? Did they announce anything about it?
There is, but I think it's better if we don't spoil it, just to let people to find it out. I mean, we have done enough spoiler in this so far podcast in our history, I think. It's time to stop doing a little bit more.
Yes, I mean, we
It's a
can
strong
be a little
stance.
more reserved. We can just start editing old episodes and beeping out old spoilers.
We could just stop talking.
Yeah.
No, say nothing. 30 minutes of silence.
Yeah, and it's like, sorry, you said 3 seconds, right? So Anthem has also canceled any future updates, which I'm kind of surprised that it took them this long.
What a destiny for this game.
Nice.
No Destiny.
No, I'm also a bit surprised that I'm really surprised that they stuck it out this long, because Anthem did not have an easy launch. It was very buggy, very rocky at the start, and it just sort of continued. And just reading the article now, I realized that it came out 2 years ago. It felt like it came out at most a year ago, but no, it was 2019. Time flies.
Well, I mean, last year was a flux year.
Last year was a year.
Yeah. Apparently, so I've been told it's been a year.
Yeah.
So
It's been.
yeah. 1 year since you laughed at me.
But no, so EA recently announced that BioWare is no longer going to be working on a revision, an overhaul of the game, and instead it is going to just sort of exist as it does.
Which is unfortunate. I mean, maybe they'll take a page out of Final Fantasy 14.
Great.
It's yeah.
Is that good news?
Apparently it's good now. Like, just, destroy everything and then redo it. Just redo it and make it better. That's all you need to do is just redo everything.
That costs a lot of dedication, actually. I really admire the producer who make this decision. And also Square Enix who allow the producer to make such a decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that's an interesting piece of gaming history to have that broken down and not exist in its original form, but the willingness to continue on with a project that is essentially a complete redo from the bottom up. I thought that was really interesting. It's something to kind of aspire to if you have a vision like that. Don't settle for anything that you're not happy with. So. Mm-hmm. Other new news. I think we will talk all BlizzCon news after the second segment here.
Thank you for joining us today on the Maids podcast. We have with here the Tim of Legend, Tim Schafer. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We have been delving into the history of Lucasfilm for weeks on end now. We had David Fox on the other day. I know he's the fellow who hired you there. Do you have any fond memories or David Fox stories?
It's all his fault. He was the one that called me when I applied for the job, and famously, I almost lost the job when I was talking to him. Did he bring that up?
I think he mentioned that he hired you. I don't know that he mentioned the story.
He was asking me what Lucasfilm, it was called Lucasfilm Games at the time, what of their games I had played. And I was like, I really love Ball Blaster. And he was like, Ball Blaster, huh? That's what it was called when it was pirated. I was like, oh no. He totally caught me. But that's what motivated me to do a ridiculous cover letter that looked like a text adventure. It looked kind of like a illustrated text adventure. I drew it on my Atari 800 with a koala pad. And I drew these pictures of me trying to find my dream job and ending up at Lucasfilm.
So the Atari 800 was your weapon of choice at the time?
Yeah, I started with a 400. I had a 400 with a little microwave oven keyboard, kind of membrane keyboard. And I loved adventure games on that. That's why I got started with the Scott Adams adventures. I think Voodoo Castle or the Count Dracula one were the first I played. And I got the little gold box set of all the 5 1/4 floppies of all the Scott Adams adventure games. And but I think Savage Island was one of my really pivotal to me. I don't know why I love Savage Island.
What do you remember about it then?
About playing adventure games?
No, Savage Island.
That's strange. I mostly remember just that feeling of I am so into this game. And that was the one. The sequel was really hard. You could walk down a hallway, but you'd run out. You would run out of oxygen and die in the third or fourth move of the game. No, if you didn't type the word hyperventilate. It's also a funny example of how they're like, well, we have a text-based engine. You don't have to type everything as a verb and a noun. You can just hyperventilate. What a strange concept. I don't know how, but I did solve that. So I don't know how I did solve that. Maybe I looked up Softside magazine for hints or something. But then there was Ghost Town, which is the Western one, where I had to go look up the how to make gunpowder, which was really fun. Adventure games used to have a more of a sense of sending you out into the world. It wasn't just contained in the game itself, but it would be you have to figure out how to make gunpowder. I went over to the encyclopedia and I looked up how to make gunpowder, and then I searched for the ingredients in the world and then made it. There was another one where we walked into a room and a ghost whispered a long, weird word. And I went and looked up the word, and that gave me the clue that I needed. So
interesting. That's a good point. You get a game like Minecraft today, making gunpowder in a sort of a crafting way would just be arbitrary items. It would never correspond to actual items exacting recipes.
Yeah, it's almost a little more like AR games. Most games want to pull you into their world and never let you forget, make you forget there is an outside world. Mm-hmm. All you need is me. All you need is the game. But some of those other games are go out into the world and learn about gunpowder. Kids, what could be healthier than that? I played those and all the Infocom games, and all the Zork games, and the I think they were Brian Moriarty's games. The Wish, he did Trinity, and their spell what was the Sorcerer one with all those scrolls.
Wishbringer? Sorcerer, I think.
Sorcerer, yeah. And Deadline and the Hitchhiker's Guide.
These were all ones that came with elaborate packaging and books and interesting boxes.
Yeah. I wish I had that Spellbound mask now, that kind of Michael Myers mask that came with Spellbound.
Oh, that's right, yes. This also brings up sort of the lineage and why the early adventure games were so brutal. Like the Sierra games, have no compunction with just offing you on just about any screen. They're not as bad as, say, the Hyperventilate situation. Like they were considered more charitable at the time, I suppose.
I mean, also because I had one game for the whole summer. Like, I just, this is what I was putting everything I had into. It wasn't like, you have hundreds of games available to you every day on your console if you want to play. So, like, if something doesn't grab you in the first few seconds, you just move on. But back then I was like, I've got to get through this game. I'm going to get through this game. I remember that feeling of being like in the 7th or 8th grade when I first heard about these games. It was like part of, we were still understanding what the impact of computers would be and what the possibilities were for video games. I remember that feeling of like, well, computers are so powerful now. This is like 1979. It's so powerful now. They can basically, you can type anything into them and it will just answer you. That was the premise of adventure games. Like on a TRS-80, you just like have a prompt and you could just type and they could just, I was like, you mean they just have every single possible English sentence inside of them waiting for you? And my dad was like, yeah, basically, I think, they're just so powerful now. And I was like, wow. And the thought of just going up and being able to type anything you want and have the game just simulate the world. So it wasn't exactly as robust as I was imagining it. And then, then I played those games where you could say, get screwdriver.
But it was the imagination is a big part of it, though.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge part of these text adventures. I want to move on to sort of the development tools of the day, because that's another thing we cover and we like to talk about historically. We've really covered the genesis of Scum right down to the very beginning discussions of Chip and Ron. What did you think when you came into Lucas and were handed Scum to use as a tool?
I mean, we loved it. It was maybe it was just because it was a magical time. We were like, I was just out of college. I think Dave was 1 year out of grad school, and we were working at Skywalker Ranch. So there's that context of like how amazing and beautiful and lucky we were. Oh wait, we weren't beautiful. Well, we were. I don't know.
You're beautiful, Tim.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place, and we were very lucky to be there. And we learned, like, in school we would mostly use C. I had used C and Lisp and stuff, and so this language the main thing was, I think Ron had purposely written to be very usable and English friendly. Like it was like, it read like English. Walk, Guybrush, to, window, wait for, actor, Guybrush, turn, Guybrush, left. It was very understandable. You could see it very logical. And it's hard to really evaluate it because that was my first and only programming job was Scum. And people we complain about it all the time, but it was like a very simple and elegant way to just imagine an adventure game and see the logic on the page. You could read anybody's Scum code and be like, I know what this is going to do.
That's a huge aspect of sort of iterative workflow and being able to make things better over time and go back and edit things too, right?
Yeah, because we were really crafting these things like second by second, like, just sitting in that room with Dave and like you walk the character up to the desk. Oh, but his hand goes up like a pixel behind the desk when he should be in front of it. And you'd like paint something or draw something or program something differently. And like you just really, you'd really go back and forth into this code to like make things look perfect,
And that's an interesting thing that I keep harping on is the thing that developers now are most interested in doing with their workflows is getting that immediate feedback, getting the edits in, getting the immediate feedback. It's a big thing of JavaScript.
I mean, I probably made it sound a little more immediate than it actually was. I think nowadays, like with hot fixes, you're in Unreal or something and you change something and you're actually in the game engine when you do it. But we would actually have to sit there and compile for, like, there are these little bits of our day taken away like 45 seconds or like 30 seconds, 45, a minute, and every time we wanted to make a change. So that's where I got into like Rubik's Cubes and dumb hobbies I could do at my desk. You're sitting at your desk just waiting.
It's funny you mention that because, in the business world, they're 20, 30 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours. So, even then those fast compile times are very quick. I wanted to also talk about sort of the end of the Lucas world because we really haven't talked about that with the other folks that we've spoken to. When I was in computer gaming world, I remember very distinctly when Grim Fandango came out and we were all loved the game, and we were almost in mourning for it because we were just like, who's going to buy this right now? Nobody buys our adventure games in 2000. Everybody wants first-person perspective shooters and real-time strategy games.
Yeah, no one told us that when we were making it, though. That was news to us.
I'm wondering, like, you obviously you didn't think that at the time, or what was your impression at the time?
I just wanted to make that game. I think that's usually my blind spot about games. Like, I never have thought about, like, well, no, we did make commercial concessions, and Grim, it had a big commercial concession, and that was 3D. You know, people have been trying to, like, push 3D for a while, and we were all about 2D art. You know, we had people like Peter Chan and, you know, Larry were these amazing 2D artists. Like, why would 3D art look so bad? You know, it looks so chunky and clunky. But then I saw Bioforge, which is the Ken Demarest game, where it looked, and I was like, oh, I could see this. So I could see that working for the Day of the Dead, and I was just so invested in that game. And then I guess I never really was like, we were never really driven by like what game would sell the most. We were just mostly inspiration driven, which I think is what we're still today, you know, working by whatever idea really excites us. Because at least, you know, like we're still talking about Grim. We still just remastered it. We made, money from it, you know, when we remastered it. It was still something that that matters to some people. So I feel like in the end, you know, I'd rather have spent my energy on something like that people still care about than something that maybe sold a lot in 1998 and no one does think about anymore.
That is a good point. I mean, the good stuff is always eventually appreciated, especially in the games industry, I feel. I mean, I was just curious as to your thoughts at the time, because, I mean, that was it at Lucas, and you sort of took a little break after that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was going to be, whether I left, I took like a year while I was developing the next game. I was going to make this spy game. And I think either way, that was not going to be a straight adventure game. I think it was going to be like moving the direction to what eventually would become Psychonauts. It was just, I was playing a lot of games like Final Fantasy VII and Super Mario had just come out, and it's just like, wow, these games are so easy to move through and so quick. Like, I wonder if you could combine the exploration and puzzle solving adventure games with just this breezy, really immersive feeling, you know. So I was working on that game, and I think we were not going to be working in Scum anymore. But then I left and started LucasArts and jumped on full. But I've talked so much, I don't remember the question.
I was sort of wondering your thoughts at the time, at the end there. How did you feel when Grim came out, and how it was received?
I mean, it was still really exciting. Like, we won Game of the Year. That was really exciting from GameSpot, and and the positive response the game got. I mean, we didn't really have. I mean, we didn't have huge expectations with adventure games in that they were. You know, the company was starting to make Star Wars games, and they were making tons of money. And we were like, you know, we had peaked with Full Throttle. You know, Full Throttle had sold like 1 million copies. It was the first one that I remember selling 1 million, you know, when it launched. And then, you know, that I'm just always been happy to be able to make the games I made. But what I feel bad about is that people that are telling me that they felt Grim contributed to the end of adventure games. These people from, well, let me tell you the story. So these guys from Gas Powered Games came up to me and like, yeah, we went to our boss and we're like, we want to make an adventure game. We love adventure games. We want to make an adventure game. And their boss said, hey, look, are you going to make a game better than Grim Fandango? No one bought Grim Fandango. So unless it's going to be like 3 times as good as Grim Fandango, it's not going to sell any better. And so it was like used as a weapon to cancel other projects. And I was like, oh, you guys, come on.
Oh, it's brutal. I mean, that was absolutely the thought process at the time, though. I mean, everything was first-person perspective shooters and real-time strategy. It was the heyday.
Not to jump to the end or anything, but I feel like what has happened is that people always ask, like, you know, why did adventure games die and stuff like that. No, they haven't died, obviously. We're still here talking about them. But obviously, also, if you say they're dead, you get in a lot of trouble with adventure game fans. I'm not making that mistake again. But the feeling is, to me, it only seemed like, I think the audience has stayed the same or grown for adventure games. It's just that the rest of the industry grew exponentially. So back when we were doing, you know, the games like Archon and, you know, Pinball Construction Set and adventure games were huge. And they're the only ones that had real narrative and beautiful art and beautiful music, you know. And then eventually, you know, like first-person shooters and console platformers exploded. Like, I remember hearing the news that Mario 3 had sold 3 million copies. I was like, what? You can sell 3 million copies of a game? What is going on? You know, and then and the shooters brought in a lot of people who were previously not really interested in games. And so, So back then, it felt like you could always sell about 200,000 copies of an adventure game, and I feel like you still could always do that. I think you can still do that. It's just that doesn't feel like a hit to people. Grim, when it launched, sold about 500,000 copies. It was just half as much as Throttle, which was a million. And so I think it's just the relative sales that make people think that they're not popular. It's just that they didn't grow, but there still is that. Not like if you can figure out then the business model of making a profit by selling 200,000 to 500,000 copies of a game, which is good. You can just don't spend too much money. You can make a living making adventure games.
Yeah, exactly. And I did not mean to insinuate that adventure games died or anything, but I do remember
there was a dip. You don't want to get in trouble either.
No, I do not. I don't want to be in trouble. But there was that dip. I wanted to shift gears, and I also wanted to leave time for you to talk about Psychonauts too, because I'm sure you have. You've got to get some things in there for the fans who are expecting that game if you want to talk about it.
Working on it.
But I wanted to say if there were any sort of lessons that you learned from Lucas about managing passionate nerds that you've taken over to sort of the Double Fine and even to this day on Psychonauts 2.
Managing passionate nerds. That's interesting. You went through a lot of turmoil and stuff in those early days. There were like factions. We had the artists in B building and the programmers were in A building, and there'd be these fights of like who controlled the game, who was more important, programmers or artists. And then when Dave and I finally got to run a project, we really felt like the artists were equal to the programmers, and we tried to run things that way. And it seems strange now. Like it seems strange to talk about this time when. Well, maybe it doesn't seem strange to people. Maybe people are still experiencing that. But to us, like this, the era of actually like, hey, what if we actually respected the artists? It seemed like this new thing. And so trying to get rid of that sort of factionalism between the team is ongoing. Like you still have to fight this battle where it's really hard to create a culture of trust between departments, like making sure that programmers and artists and audio people and designers and producers all see each other as human beings who are all on the same side. That's one of the hardest things with a creative project that's under pressure for time and schedule and money. Because you can, especially, we're all working in the same environment. People are not, you can check things out of a version control and mess up somebody else's work by checking something in wrong, and it can just create a whole bunch of tension. So, but I noticed that at LucasArts, the just being different buildings, and it's really easy to create a feeling of separation among a team, and getting people to really feel like they're on the same team and they're working with their friends is a really important thing to maintain, because it just makes the whole process so much healthier and better for everyone.
And how is Psychonauts 2 coming? It seems like you've been hard at work.
Yeah, I mean, it's been this story. It's like the story of our company in some ways. Like it started with crowdfunding, and it got a publisher, then it lost its publisher, got another publisher, and then that publisher went away, and then it got Microsoft. Was like the opposite of Psychonauts 1. It started with Microsoft and then it went to another publisher, and so it's a funny mirror of the first game, but it's just something we care about so much and we want to get right, so we are putting everything into it, and it's been great. Like, I don't know what would happen if we hadn't partnered up with Microsoft, because they're making sure that we are making all the decisions for the right reasons and at the end. Because, when you get under pressure, you can get this decision. You can just decide to like, well, I guess we won't polish the game, or we won't fix these bugs, or else, some people would crunch the team, and we really crunched the team on the first game, and we made this resolution to not crunch the team anymore. I think that's something that the games industry is slowly growing out of, I hope, and so how do you solve that? So. But anyway, that's stuff that's going on now. But it's coming on great. The team is great. Game's going to be good.
I think it helps that Microsoft at its core understands software development. You know what I mean? They seem to...
Yes. Someone once said, I think it was Nathan Martz, or lead programmer on Brutal, he said, games are like the complexity of engineering multiplied by the subjectivity of art. So, working with people who know it could be unpredictable is important.
It's very difficult to get it right. I mean, how do you know when something is right in a game? I mean, is it just fun, or how do you even tell after you've tried it 100 times?
I mean, that you playtest it. You playtest with other people. It's an interesting thing now with everyone living on Zoom, but we are playtesting over Zoom. We're watching people play it, which in some ways is better than before. We'd like sit in a room and put them on a couch, and we'd sit behind them and try not to cough and watch them play the game. But now we can just watch them on Zoom, and we have a recording of it, and we can share the recording with people. And everyone has their own way of playtesting the game, but it's like you can have the best intentions in the world, especially with adventure games. And if you don't kind of building these ramps or like file off the edges, someone will just hit a hard stop. It's really easy to get a hard stop in an adventure game. And when you're watching someone, like a playtest environment is really painful. Because like those summers where I was playing, Savage Island and Ghost Town, you wouldn't feel the pain of me being stuck on a puzzle. It was just part of the fun. And then, but if you're in a room watching someone go like, I have to make gunpowder? I don't know how to make gunpowder. It just, you feel like you instantly, I gotta change. It's really tempting to make every puzzle go away because you're like, I hated that moment where the player didn't know what to do. And so that's a challenge for adventure games in the modern day, because I think usability is a big emphasis on games. Now, people should always know what they're doing. They should be moving forward. Momentum is really important. And adventure games go against that in so many ways. They like, you have to find a way of making being stuck entertaining for people. Like, okay, I was stuck, but I was totally entertained. I always think of this example with my brother. When I was in high school, my brother would come back from his job in college at a summer camp. And they have all these summer camp games, and a lot of these are these little riddles, like those riddles for, a man is laying face down in the middle of a field. How did he get there? And you guess, you ask all these yes or no questions, and then you guess the answer. It's like a little puzzle, like an adventure game puzzle in a way. And the thing about it that made it fun was, as we were stuck, he'd be telling us around the dinner table, but as we were stuck on this puzzle, he'd be smiling at us and like, oh, you're really close. He'd be like telling, oh, yeah. And then my sister would get a, hey, she got a hit. Hey, I'd be like, what? She's going to get before me. And that process of being stuck was really part of the entertainment. And I've always thought about those meals where we had one of his riddles going on, and like, how can I recreate that feeling of my brother kind of taunting me and making sure I knew I was really close to solving a puzzle? Like, that always seemed like the adventure game magic to me. In fact, and people might feel differently about this, but he was the one that came back from the camp with a story of like, if this is 2, what's this? You can't see me if you're on the Zoom call.
Three fingers versus 1 finger, yeah.
It's the Monkey Island Alley backdoor puzzle that came from. I blame that on my brother and his summer camp.
The summer camps always come up with the most interesting riddles and weird games and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Kids, it's like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, so it's almost like, I don't know, Psychonauts thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Tim, thank you for being here, and good luck on Psychonauts 2. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again very much for your conversation. Hope you all enjoyed that out there as well. Anthony, BlizzCon, lots of new stuff happening.
Tons.
What has been your favorite or biggest piece of news from BlizzCon that you've seen?
The Burning Crusade update for the WoW Classic. So that's very interesting. So it seems like WoW Classic is sort of progressing how it did in the past. Kind of like Terminator, I guess. I don't know. That's how I would describe the whole WoW Classic progression. It's like we're going to the past now. John Connor, let's save the world again.
I think the only way to save the world is to bring back the old world and continue anew again.
It definitely feels like everything old is new again at Blizzard. Like, we're going back to Burning Crusade. WoW Classic is where it's at right now. And then the remaster of Diablo 2.
That is one of the most exciting things, I think. There's going to be a graphical toggle switch in Diablo 2 that'll let you essentially just go back in time 20 years. Just flip, and then flip. Oh my God, I'm playing the old game and the new game at the same time. I mean, and they also said that they are they're coming through every bit of code, and they are leaving it and embracing some of their old bugs and glitches as they have to, because if they change certain things, they have found that they are integral to the function of the game. So, because everything is interconnected with their older way of writing the code. It'll be interesting to see. Hearthstone is also getting new stuff. Overwatch 2, we saw some amazing new footage from that. New characters, new maps, new areas and older maps, new game modes, new balancing in as far as like passive abilities based on class. It looks like an exciting future for Overwatch, a game that I regrettably didn't play as much as I would have liked. They also teased the new Rogue class for Diablo 4. Everything is getting updated. Everything's coming out again. It's really exciting. They have the new like Dishonored Chains, Undying Chains, something update for the current World of Warcraft Classic expansion. Shadowlands patch.
Mm-hmm.
Chains of Domination. That's another new one. New location called Korthia. A new 10 boss raid, and an 8 boss mega dungeon, and more. God, hearing those words come out of my mouth.
Such a nerd.
8 boss mega dungeon. Another bit of weird BlizzCon news. It was the first BlizzCon that was online only because of the situation at hand, because of COVID, and so it was directly online. They also had a performance from Metallica that was streamed on Twitch that got copyright claimed.
Wow.
And yeah, Twitch's own system copyright claimed a live concert from BlizzCon.
They must be sounding too much like the original.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, they were they were playing with a track. They weren't actually playing live. They were just miming everything, and they were just pumping a different live track through. But I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that I think we might be seeing more with some streamers playing games. I mean, because certain games have mainstream music, and it's going to be very much affecting everything else. If they're watching streamers play a game and then it just has a song in the game, are they going to have to mute the whole game while they're playing? Is it not under the fair use of that product? We'll see. Games should be for the people, their history.
This kind of stuff have been happening too much that it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, it is definitely not as fun.
Anyway, that is all the time we have this week. Thank you for listening to the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment's official podcast. If you've got any thoughts, questions, corrections, or general museum ideas, shoot us an email at info@themade.org.
We'd like to send a big thank you to everyone who donated recently, and to our Patreon supporters who keep the Made afloat. Patreon donors get to listen to this podcast 1 week before it's released on major streaming services, and we'll continue that with future episodes every week, except for last week where we took a break. Thank you very much. We rested nice and it was great. Till then, I'm Red.
I'm Miles.
I'm Chin.
And I'm Anthony.
Thanks, and we'll see you next time.